guest Reverend here, the Reverend Ivan Corbin, who, as many of you know here on the beach, has been here for some time and is now leaving us. So this is his bid adieu. Reverend, come on up and give us a, please stand.
The mic.
Before I pray, I just want to say thanks for allowing us to be a part of this community for the last 2 years. It was not our intent to be here only 2 years, but things happen. And so I also want to say, Samantha Opperly, my replacement, gets here the same day that we leave, which is 2 weeks from today. She'll be here on the 30th, the day after. Please welcome us. I'm encouraging her to get as involved as I did. She may or may not, but she's young, enthusiastic, just graduated school, so my guess is she's still got some energy to do that. And pray for us as we head to Homestead, first year I'm at this church, into the hot zone. And good news for us today is that our church is going to try reopening Sunday with all the social distancing and everything. We're also aware that we're still in the midst of this thing, so that's what we're going to pray about today and some of the other things that are happening. But thank you all for allowing us to be a part of this community. Really loved it, enjoyed it, all of you too. Let's pray. Gracious God, 3 months ago, you know that everything for our world came to a screeching halt. Even earlier than that, in places like Wuhan and other places where the virus was already breaking out. We didn't know what kind of world we were entering into, but you kind of probably had a good idea. And we are reminded that no matter what happens, you're always there with us. You don't always rescue us from things, but you are with us. We thank you for that. Then, Lord, about a month ago, the pandemic that we thought we had to deal with revealed a 400-year-old pandemic of racism that not only in our country but around the world, that now we're having to deal with both these pandemics. And my prayer is that, Lord, you will help us all deal honestly with them, that you will help us to do the things necessary to bring healing to our city, our county, our state, our nation, and our world, both physically and emotionally. Help us to be quick to listen, slow to speak. Help us to learn more about the other in our lives, and less judgmental about those things we do not understand or we are afraid of. Help us to navigate both of these pandemics till we see them through. Pray for guidance and wisdom, direction for all of our leaders. We pray for our first responders. We pray for those who are still on the front lines in the hospitals and ambulances and other places, caring for those who are still coming down with this virus and those who are being hospitalized, putting their lives on line. We pray for people in the grocery stores and in the hardware stores and in all the businesses where you keep them safe as they try to take care of the needs of those that they are taking care of. And Lord, right now we pray that you will help us to simply trust one another, to work together. Pray for our leaders here in this town. You'll give them wisdom and direction as they navigate not only the normal business of this community, but also how to safely care for its residents as well as its visitors. Help us all to trust that you are there with us when all of these things are happening. We pray all these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you for those kind words, Reverend. We wish you well in your new job across the state. Welcome back anytime. You're only a couple of hours away.
We'll look forward to it.
And we wish you good luck with your reopening weekend. And thank you for shepherding your flock here in the town for the past couple of years.
I just wanted to thank Ivan for his service to our community. I've never seen anybody hit a town and become so involved as he did. Thank you on behalf of the citizens of Fort Myers Beach.
Pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah.
Mr. Herron's going to be calling back in. He got cut
Got
off.
him on here.
I think he got cut off. He says calling, going to call in a minute.
Okay. There, John? Yeah, he's
Okay.
here. Okay. Okay, the next item is the approval of the final agenda. Are there any changes, or is there a motion to approve the final agenda? Moved, seconded. Discussion? Action? Motion carries unanimously. Next item on the agenda is public comment. Madam Clerk.
First request is from Bob Burgess. He will be followed by Len Lemmer. Mr. Burgess, if you'd go to the podium.
Thank you so much for doing the streets, taking care of the sewers, 4th of July, no fireworks, closing the beach. Thank you. I need your help. Lived at 127 Palermo Circle for 25 years, paid taxes for 25 years. Nobody is helping me. There's human waste being dumped in the canal. In the back bay, I've called many times. Nobody does anything. I can smell it in my house. This is not low tide. I've lived there 25 years. I know the smell of low tide. This is human waste. I would hope that you take care of it. Also, I would hope that you vote against Bayside Park having any facilities for bums, drug addicts, alcoholics, and lowlifes to invade our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next
that's
request
the-
is Len Lemmer, followed by Robert Pritt.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Len Lemmer. I own Nervous Nellies, and thank you for the opportunity to address you this morning. There's been a lot of discussion about Bayside Park. Unfortunately, no one at the town sought the opinions of those most directly affected by this building. In fact, a cynic might say that this council and staff have been hiding this discussion from us. All that being said, let's discuss what we can say is true. First of all, Nervous Nellies ownership and staff oppose the construction of this building. The ownership of Marina Village opposes the construction. Residents of Marina Village oppose the construction. Snug Harbor Restaurant opposes the construction. Matanzas Hotel and Restaurant oppose the construction. Harbor House opposes the construction. Residents of Harbor House oppose the construction. This building will block views of the water from Harbor House, Nervous Nellies, Marina Village, and Bayside Park itself. The building will only benefit those people who use the mooring field and take away rights from everyone else. You have been presented with an alternative plan to house the mooring field services in the Harbor House. This plan is much more economical than the $1.3 million you are proposing for this building. The Harbor House plan would result in the mooring services being provided at less cost and still preserve the views of Bayside Park. Next, the businesses of Fort Myers have gone through the worst economic downturn in its history. Saddling the town with debt of any kind at this point is a very questionable decision. Fort Myers Beach public opinion, as seen on Beach Radio's Facebook page, is presently running more than 90% against the construction of this building. Speaking strictly as the owner of Nervous Nellies, the effects of this building on our business will be devastating. There will be 100 seats in my restaurant where water views will be replaced with views of a concrete wall. All of Nervous Nellies' outdoor events, St. Patrick's Day, Songwriters Festival, Boat Parade will go away. I project a one-year loss in sales of $1 million. $1 million translates into the loss of 10 full-time jobs. Ladies and gentlemen, your laundromat is not worth 10 full-time jobs. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Next speaker is Robert Pritt, followed by Freddie Magana.
Morning, Mayor, members of council. My name is Robert Pritt with the law firm of Rexann and Andrus.
That Bob Pritt under there?
That's me under here. And that's you up there, Mr. Murphy, all the
nice
way
to see
back
you.
from the very beginning of the city, beginning of the
again,
town, I
Bob.
think. So, I'm here on behalf of Len Lemmer, the owner of Nervous Nellies, and also the owner of Old Seaport Place, Jim Figurato, who could not be here today. We've only had a short time to begin reviewing this proposal by the town. However, a couple of issues at least appeared to me to be relevant. First, it appears to be in the middle of a right-of-way, and I understand there's a history to this. I just haven't had a chance yet to have our title people get into those issues. However, very, very close, apparently, to these existing businesses. And the law is, as I recall, that there is a dedication of a right-of-way is for right-of-way purposes, not for park purposes or other purposes. Whether or not that's an issue that flies, I don't know for sure yet, but we're looking into it in the short period of time we've had. Second is Len says the structure at this location and height will completely close off about half of the view of the bay from Nervous Nellies. Went up there, took photographs on Friday. The substantial deprivation of a riparian right to a view has been found by the courts to be a taking for which just compensation must be paid. And some of you may recall the Midpoint Bridge case. There was a case that came out of that called Kiesel versus Lee County. That case has been cited by the Florida Supreme Court as well as the U.S. Supreme Court. And so the taking of a view can be a taking. The neighbors apparently have allowed, or somebody has allowed some incursion in the past, but what's out there now is just very small in comparison to what appears to be planned by the town. I understand, I assume that today you're going to have some discussion about that. Certainly we'll want to stay and listen to it, but we would urge you to think very hard about whether or not you really want to do this in the manner that it's proposed to be done as we understand it. Thank you very much, and beautiful room here. I think Jan Ellen did the painting and everything, and changed, and it's very nice.
Thank you, Bob.
Freddie Magana, please pronounce your name for me, followed by Tyler Lemmer.
Freddie Magana. Thank you for allowing us to be here and a chance to speak this morning. I am the general manager of Nervous Nellies, and I just like to say that we've been through a very stressful situation. There's this COVID-19, and all of our employees have been really, really hurt financially. And with this building coming up, as Len said earlier, it will cost a lot of sales per year if this building goes up. Unfortunately, that will make all of our staff make a lot less money. So we're trying to provide jobs for people instead of taking away jobs. So we'd like for you to consider not to do this so that we don't keep hurting the staff that works around in that area. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Tyler Lemmer, followed by Lori Russell.
Morning.
Morning.
First, I'd like to thank the town council for the opportunity to be heard. I'd like to address the proposed changes to Bayside Park as it pertains to the mooring field upland services. Frankly, myself and other residents and business owners in Fort Myers Beach find it incredibly alarming that so many wheels have been set into motion without consideration or input from those who stand to be most effective. As the owners of Nervous Nellies standing 6 feet from the proposed building, we only learned about these plans when we saw survey crews marking the area for utilities. Perhaps we missed pertinent meetings in preparation for our season. However, most concerning is that little, if any, effort was made to notify us of the 45-foot tall building that was being constructed merely feet from the restaurant. That being said, at this time, I'd like to share our perspective on what we see as an incredible misuse of Bayside Park. Bayside Park is one of the highlights of Fort Myers Beach. Many events such as the Boat Parade, Roar Offshore, St. Patrick's Day festivities, Songwriters Fest, and Taste of the Beach have been celebrated for years in this beautiful spot, and its preservation, not destruction, should be at the top of all town council priorities. Obviously, as a tax-paying business owner, our primary concern is the costs, both upfront and long-term of this project. This time, after tax revenues have been disseminated on Fort Myers Beach from COVID-19, it's understandable that the town would want to find a way not only to update and increase the serviceability of the mooring field, but also collect more revenue for providing them. Fortunately, the owners of Matanzas and the Harbor House have proposed a solution that is much more viable, both economically and logistically, than the building at Bayside Park. So we're left to wonder why this isn't the chosen course of action for the town. There are options for long-term leasing as well as purchasing the given property. Also, the collaboration between local government and private citizens in problem solving would seem to be the epitome of a relationship to which all towns should aspire. This proposal also offers options for operation maintenance, security, and cleaning of the facilities, enabling the town to choose the most cost-effective means. Certainly, these permanent, recurring costs have to be a consideration when looking at operating a standalone facility with no private, potentially revenues sparing or support. Next, I have to implore the council to consider the aesthetic detriment to a gorgeous and historical area of Fort Myers Beach. Placing a 45-foot tall concrete structure where there are amazing views of the Back Bay is an injustice on our island. Its residents, and our visitors. A warm, colorful area with such potential for development would be left cold and concrete forever, diminishing so many events that people look forward to every year. If this were necessary, it would perhaps be acceptable, albeit begrudgingly, yet it is not, again, pointing back to the solution generously provided by Harbor House. Myself and my family and many residents of Fort Myers Beach are in favor of improving Bayside Park. The Veterans Memorial sounds like a wonderful idea, and with the space spared from the monstrosity of a 3-story laundromat, this would be very possible. Thank you very much.
Mr. Town Manager, but this is unusual. We don't usually comment on in the public comment portion of this, but that's the second speaker that today that notice has not been given to these meetings prior to this. I'm not taking a position either way. I really don't have a position at this point. But this business about not being notified of things and not being made aware of, Mr. Town Manager, can you give me a brief chronology of just the meetings that have been held and what type of notice is given out for these meetings? Just to put this to rest, because it's not just you two speakers here. We've got an untold number of emails that saying, no one's been told about what's been going on. I just want to clear the air about this one situation here.
Well, with regard to this project, these projects were worked on by our various committees or on various committee agendas on multiple occasions prior to the COVID-19 sort of shutdown of in-person meetings, and since then they've been the subject of Zoom meetings and starting to have in-person meetings again. With regard to the notice and process and those types of things, I think there's been adequate notice for people to participate, and I think as one speaker said, people may have been distracted by other things, but there was no intention or effort to not get full public input with regard to this and to other projects that the town is working on, and provide people with numerous opportunities to speak to the issue. None of these issues are in stone or can't be reconsidered today and even into the future. So there's plenty of opportunity for dialogue and and public input with regard to this and the other two major projects that the town is contemplating.
Thank you very much. All right, next speaker.
Next speaker is Lori Russell, followed by Jana Holmes.
Good morning.
Morning.
I am the manager and the of Marina Village, and a lot of people have already said why everybody is opposed to that. I also get all the incoming mail. I do want to address that, and I've never seen anything come through with this proposal, and it wasn't until that we saw the markings going up that we started questioning what is going on here. But beside that, we'll see. But I'm not going to go into detail about it, except to let you know that none of the owners of our building want this. As you can tell, that no one around this wants this. And I watched the meetings during the closure of our beach, and I saw every one of you passionate about your beach rights, etc. Well, we're passionate about not building this site. So if you say that we had opportune time, I disagree, because I think you would have had all of us here saying, please don't build this. Please don't build this. And you are all on social media, because I see your comments, at least most of you. And there isn't anyone, 90%, I think that's low. I think it's close to 100% that think that this is absolutely horrible. Thank you.
Next speaker, Jana Holmes, followed by Natalie Richardson.
Morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me here to speak to you about BORCAB, the Oaks Recreational Advisory Board. The inclusion and success of this campus will enrich young and old who want to come together to learn and enjoy a wonderful life, wonderful campus with friends and common interests. Would not replace what exists on Fort Myers Beach gatherings now.
Excuse me, Jana, excuse me. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Did you want to give this under your, under the advisory committee's items?
I do.
Okay, why don't you wait for that?
Okay.
This is public, then you're not limited to your time. You can speak to your heart's delight. Okay, next.
Next request is Natalie Richardson, who will be followed by Kirk Whitaker.
Morning. Thank you for this opportunity to share our feelings with you. I'm Natalie Richardson, co-owner of Unit 206 at the Harbor House, with a gorgeous view of the San Carlos Bay right now. I find it ironic in the hours that my husband and I have watched of meetings that have been held, and you talk about the observation deck, the observation deck, the observation deck. You're so concerned about the observation deck, yet you fail to observe the clear and vocal disdain that several hundred people have voiced, either on Facebook posts, which Vice Mayor Hosafros has seen and commented on, as well as the change.org petition that is nearing the 500 signatures. I've been monitoring social media, and I can count on one hand positive comments about this ridiculous project, and I wouldn't use all 5 fingers. Not for Beach Talk Radio, many people would have remained unaware of what you've been up to. Thank you, Beach Talk Radio, for having our backs and keeping everyone informed. You clearly have Fort Myers Beach residents' best interests in mind. It's an embarrassment that so much money, a couple $100,000, have already been spent on something like this without public input and consideration, our perception. To make it worse, it seems that you are already unwilling to waste even more taxpayer dollars pushing forward a project that is so clearly opposed, and that's without even researching what's actually allowed there. You've not exhausted the other less expensive and more visually appealing options. We're not allowed to ask you any questions, so I'll encourage you to ask yourselves. Who are you elected to serve? Taxpayers of Fort Myers Beach, or the visitors that will be hooked up to those 70 mooring balls? 70. While COVID may have conveniently made it easy for you to try to push this through unnoticed, it has not been as convenient for all the businesses, restaurants, rentals, retail, who will take a considerable amount of time to recover from this. Moving forward with this ridiculous project will only continue that negative impact to those businesses. Do the right thing and stop the planned destruction of that area. Take advantage of the options that have been offered that will keep that area a place that thousands of visitors will want to continue to visit and support. Say you've received numerous emails from people who didn't know. Perhaps you need to review your communication methods. What the taxpayers are saying is they feel informed. Well, we're informed now, and we're incredibly disappointed, and we are imploring you not to move forward with this project. Thank you.
Next speaker is Kirk Whitaker, followed by Todd Richardson. Apparently, Mr. Whitaker is not here. Todd Richardson, followed by Randall Zweier.
I want to thank the council for having me here today, or allowing us to be here today. I want to thank the council members who I've reached out to that have also reached back and assisted in the ways that they have. My understanding is this project started as a need for a couple more restrooms or showers for the mooring fields, and an interest in bringing the mooring field facilities possibly in-house. I don't know how well that was vetted out. Currently held by Matanzas. I think there have been some issues, at least they claim, over the past, so maybe we bring it in-house and take a look at that. On February 6th, if I believe I have the date right, and this might have been the former council, design plans for the Bayside Park just a few months back was basically an improved stage design with a facelift to the park. Nearly everyone in that meeting, if you go back and listen to it, talked about the importance of the views and the importance of the waterways, the importance of not blocking that. Talked about the bay, they talked about the bridge, and many comments were made that nobody really wanted to put a building on that site. And that was just back February 6th. This goes back to the fact that we've been informed or not been informed. First time this project of a 3-story building was presented, I believe, was in the Zoom meeting that I spoke back on May 14th. I think that's when it was presented to the Anchorage Advisory Committee. So up until some point in March, we had a redesigned stage with a facelift to the park. The park was going to include educational areas. The park was going to include tributes to the military. There was talk about different things for kids, whether it was a splash park or not a splash park. I think the biggest reason a lot of us didn't get involved is I don't think you need us to tell you what type of paver or what type of plant or what type of palm tree you want to put in there. At that point in time, nobody was doing anything to really change the function of the park. Today's a little different. Currently, the upland services, from what we can find, I believe spent $89,000 last year paid to Matanzas. Bring those in to pay someone just $15 an hour, manage that 12 hours a day, not 14 hours a day as it is now, it cost the city $65,000. Have cleaning services alone at $100 a day. For the 6 showers and laundry facilities would be another $35,000. At this point, you're already north of $100,000, more than you spend today. It doesn't include maintenance, utilities, any upkeep, or the cost of the building. So I think that needs to be taken a look at. About the building, we've got 47 feet between the 2 sidewalks, as measured on a 63-foot plot.
I have to start wrapping it up, sir.
Okay, thank you. Well, let me finish with this. I'm asking you to step back, take a look at your options. Restrooms and showers can be on the first floor, as it was questioned, I think, in the last meeting you all showed up at. As long as the building is built to code, which the Harbor House is, you have options. This laundromat doesn't belong on the waterfront. It doesn't need to destroy the businesses in the area, the property values, or any of the views. Be a good neighbor, as you mentioned a couple of months ago, and go back and watch the February 6th meeting. I think it'll be enlightening. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Randall Zweier, followed by Lindy Bennett.
Letting me up. I've never done this before. I have to say that I'm disappointed. I've gotten notices in the mail based on little presentations or plays or whatnot going on at the park. Never once did I get a communication from the city indicating anything like this was going on. Never once. So I don't know how the communication broke down, but it clearly did. when you were talking about various things were said here or there was no specifics. You didn't have any dates as to what went out when. I don't have copies of whatever you're referring to. Well, there was a breakdown. Right? And secondly, there are so many other places where this could be effective on the island or even across in the commercial side of the bay right now. That's where the mooring field used to be. I was talking to the news lady this morning that was doing news. This is all over the city now, as you know. So she was saying that Karen Light, I believe was her name, Kathleen Light, one of the two, that she's open to options. So this seems to be driven more by this group than the AAC. The other consideration I have too is the AAC has not produced any minutes so far this year, and it's June. This again seems like it's all being done undercover from our perspective. You can't tell how livid I am about this.
Thank you.
Cindy Bennett, followed by James Chastain.
Hi, thank you for having us here. I'm a resident of Fort Myers Beach at Harbor House. I'm also a mother. My children go to Beach Elementary School. We do have Bay Oaks, however, that is the only place on the island that I can recommend visitors with their children where to go, and I think it's disgusting to take away one of the most beautiful and sentimental areas that we've had on Fort Myers Beach. It was bad enough when the fountain wasn't replaced. But all aside from that, that's emotional, okay? But this is a serious security issue, and I have a serious problem with it, and I know a lot of other women would feel this way. We already have groups of, I think someone said alcoholics, there's drug deals going on underneath the bridge on a daily basis. During COVID was one of the scariest times on the island. There was no security. I'm walking my dog in the middle of the night. I have little kids. I think any parent would agree with me. What kind of, what are we trying to portray? People coming to visit our island. I feel like a facility like this, unfortunately, will enable bums, homeless people taking shady deals. We are enabling them to sustain their lifestyle, and it's wrong. Thank you.
Thank you.
Morning. My name is James Chastain, and everybody stole my thunder. My biggest thing is notification, and because this is public land, they're required by federal and state statute to hold a public hearing to determine the outcome of that public land. I'm going to leave it at that.
Thank you. More?
That completes the requests I've received.
Okay. We received a couple of letters just prior to the meeting, one from Mr. Goggin and one from Mr. Sparron-Smith. We'll enter these into the record. Okay. That's all for public comment.
Mr. Mayor, I think there was
Is there anyone else in the room who wishes to speak? Yes, please. Okay, Nick, come on up. Thank you, Jim.
Yes, hello, my name is Nick Rulin. I'm manager, owner of Snug Harbor Restaurant, and I guess I've lived here for about 40 years, I guess, believe it or not, but that has nothing to do with anything. My question is, and I'm late in the game, I think, getting involved at all, or knowing about it, but when I was trying to look things up, just so I'd be a little bit more educated, what I ran into with most projects is there's a variance report that relates to a strap number that notifies X amount of people. I think that's what everyone's sort of talking about. No matter who you are then, that you then have to notify within a 500-foot radius, even if you're going to get a liquor license or any project, pretty much. And in trying to look it up, I couldn't find a strap number for that property, which made me wonder if it even got vacated properly. I don't know, but looking it up, so I use Nervous Nellies. There's 91, in a variance report, there'd be 91 parcels affected. And I think that's what they're maybe referring to, where everyone gets, I think you have to do a certified letter. And I know it hasn't happened since it went from a rehab to the three or four story building. That I'm pretty sure of. I think I think that's the notification part that everyone's looking at. Everything else that comes up has pretty much already been sort of discussed, other than, you know, at the end of the project, it has to be the zoning and/or, I guess, the use. I was just wondering what that would come under with public use, I guess. I don't know what the zoning category would be. It looks like there was going to be space that could be rented to functions, I guess, weddings, I don't know. That's what I heard in the last meeting, I think. Be interesting to see how that is. I hate to see it be a competing revenue center with businesses that are already there in the entertainment district. But I don't know if that's the intention. So that's pretty much it, other than understanding how it can take place, because I can't find a strap number to find the zoning. And I don't know if that's been brought up, or I don't know where to go. So, thank you.
Hey, Nick, thank you. Anyone else wish to comment? Yes.
My name is Seal Spuler. I live on Estero Boulevard, and I didn't know if this was not on the agenda. Am I allowed to say this now?
Yes.
In the recent Island Sandpaper, the controversial proposed dune walkover and boardwalk was mentioned, as the owners have asked to have a special exemption granted. What the paper said, the owners have requested to take the matter before a non-binding outside mediator, and as the paper stated, the council agreed. Find a solution to this ongoing concern will certainly be helpful and beneficial, and hopefully beneficial to all of us. The question that I ask is, will the public also be able to attend to this meeting? What mediation brings out would certainly quell many of the concerns of the public, and it would be advantageous to all of those, as so many are involved in this decision. I'll look forward as to how this.
Thank you. Anyone else care to speak? Yes, Barb.
Morning, council members.
Morning.
Sorry I didn't put my name in beforehand, but, and Jenna will speak to this. We're members of BORCAB, and we see on the agenda that you're looking for approval for the 30% design phase for the project that we've been working on for more than a year. And those meetings also are public, and so I think a lot of the community have been aware about what we've proposed for Bay Oaks for the future. So I'm just calling to ask for your support to have that project go forward. This is not for anybody else but the residents and visitors. It's not necessarily tourist related. It is an amenity for our community, and we want to be able to provide amenities for our community just like the rest of the Lee County communities do. For example, Bonita Springs, Estero, and Sanibel all have facilities that are far better than ours. So we're just trying to get up to speed. If we could do that with your approval, we would really appreciate it. So I know that Jenna has more to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Okay. Anyone else? Okay, we'll close the public comment section now. Thank you very, very much, everyone. Okay, next item on the agenda is local achievements and recognitions. Start over this end with Councilman Allers.
Nothing today, Mayor.
Nothing today. Vice Mayor?
I would just like to say briefly, because we may not have a chance, given the fact that we won't be meeting for some time after this, I want to wish Bob and Missy and Gary and all the folks at the Sandpaper well. It's very saddened to hear of their closing. I hope they're successful in selling and having a transition, and hopefully they'll mentor the new folks at the Sandpaper. I must say, I have read the Sandpaper from cover to cover for years, and the fact that small group of people puts out that much content, that much quality content, and has done a great job of keeping their news separate from their editorial page, unlike many papers today. I just credit them for a great contribution to our community. To have a quality paper like that on the island has been a benefit to all the citizenry, including the governance of this town. And I wish them Godspeed. I understand why they're doing it, because out to sort of publish and perish each week, publish or perish, is a tough, tough job. Considering the amount of content they put out, again, quality content, given the limited staff, really been amazing. So we've been very blessed to have them on our island. I wish them Godspeed.
Yeah, I'd like to just acknowledge Jan Fleming for her tireless continuing efforts to raise money for the Community Foundation and for our servers. She's, sometimes these things get a lot of attention right away, but she is persistent, and she's out there on her bike holding people who are not wearing their shirts when they're supposed to. But just her continued effort, because I know a lot of times these things get out of the radar and there's still a need out there. So
I would I'd just like to recognize you folks that came out today to speak to this topic down at the Bayside Park. I really don't know which way this is going to go. I don't really have a strong opinion either way right now myself, but I will tell you that I will ask you, I won't tell you, I'll ask you that if you should get the results that you are after in this matter, I would ask you to direct your enthusiasm maybe towards the Bay Oaks project, something that will benefit all of this town, particularly those with children and parents and grandparents and so forth. So regardless of how this goes, there are other positive things going on that we can all get behind, and I hope that your activism continues in such a vein. I thank you again for coming out today. Okay, the next item on the agenda is advisory committees. We'll start, Jana, you're here. For the Oaks, FORCAB. Let the room empty out here if anybody wants to.
it's usually what happens when I get up to speak.
I know what I say. I didn't say much yet.
Answer, John?
Yeah, go ahead.
The council, there's nothing to move forward, but the council can also take up the item and direct staff to do something or not do something. It's not on the agenda to move forward, but they could discuss it to stop it if they wish.
Okay.
Anytime they wish.
Okay, that's the end. That's you're welcome. Let's move on. Jana, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your words of kindness about BORCAB. I'm Jana Holmes, and I've been on BORCAB for a long time. I've seen it through a lot of directors and employees, and so I just thought I'd read to you a letter that I wrote concerning my personal view of this, but also what it enables for the community. The inclusion and success of this campus will enrich young and old who want to come together to learn and enjoy life in a wonderful campus with new friends and common interests. It would not replace what exists on Fort Myers Beach gatherings now at the local churches, parks, and resorts. This campus renewal is for everyone, full-time residents, visitors, and families who want to enjoy the Florida fun and sun. We could host concerts, sports, and community education. When I joined this community, I wanted to make a difference. I have a passion for Bay Oaks and reached out to town council member who helped me know what steps to take to reach out. Our daughter Katie realized she couldn't make a living for herself and her son Cohen up north, so we invited them to come down and move with us when Cohen was 4. We moved in and they stayed for years in our little condo. I felt invigorated, and once Cohen started Beach Elementary, I got involved. Cohen was an active 8-year-old when I joined BORCAB in 2014, and he was involved in Bay Oaks soccer, t-ball, swimming, and after-school programs. He had a solid foundation so our daughter could go back to work. I listened to his excitement about beach school and Bay Oaks. I loved hearing him talk to his friends who have now still remained friends. Bay Oaks campus in 2014, as a new Bay Board Cab member, I listened to my first ever advisory meeting. I couldn't get a sense of future plans for Bay Oaks. In the past, and that was the past, Board Cab has had other chances for improving our campus, but the future usage could not be seen, and therefore we were stagnant and unable to move forward. Gossip of the small town residents flowed willingly into the seasonal owners who just saw taxes going up on a dead subject, never attending any of the events or being involved. I posted notices and talked to people in my condo and others about the importance of Bay Oaks to this community, but it fell on deaf ears, which is what they said. Because they knew Bay Oaks, along with elementary school, would close. They had no sight of, nor would listen to, any future for themselves, their grandchildren, and their children. Then came our new staff director, Sean DePalma, and his enthusiasm at seeing all things possible at the opportunities for Bay Oaks. Once again, we were hopeful of having a bit of success to move forward. Sean's footprint and leadership before he left Fort Myers Beach, along with Sarah Meyer's input, gave us the foothold we needed to move ahead. Finally, we could actually begin work on a master concept with Allison Geeson as Director of Culture, Parks, and Recreation, and Sarah Meyer as Recreation Campus Manager. We had a new approach and outlook on the life of Bay Oaks. Excitement became ecstatic as we became a unit of members bound together by a purpose and a goal. With the leadership of Allison, Sarah, and our newest members, Barbara Hill and Karen Woodson, on our committee, we now had strong members joining our vision who would forge ahead and not allow us to stop moving forward. In all the years I've been with Board Cab, we had advising employees who focused on fixing our faults as a community campus and not focusing on the positive influence that we have as a community at Bay Oaks. The future of Bay Oaks is now. As an active board member at the Dolphin Watch condominium, I've shown the Bay Oaks concept drawings to my neighbors, and the reactions are encouraging as they realize the prospect of a new campus. I've been posting not only in our condo, but also speaking to other condo owners north of Times Square. I value your openness to weigh the issues concerning Bay Oaks' future. If not now, then when? Our Board Cab members appreciate and thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Jana. Thank you for your service. Is there anyone else? Any other committee members here today that want to give a report?
Just got a quick question for Rexann. Has the Anchorage Committee met on this since the last meeting?
Not sure I understand your question.
Has the Anchorage Committee met and talked about the Bayfront Park?
Yes, they did in May. They got the first presentation of the new, and we found out that it couldn't be where it was.
Not since then?
Sorry?
Not since then?
No, we're meeting this week.
If I may ask a similar question, is the Anchorage Advisory Committee, are they scheduled to hear the sort of the alternative proposal from Harbor House? Will there be an opportunity for that to be fully vetted by the advisory committee?
I don't know if it's on the agenda. I haven't seen the agenda yet. They may discuss it. I can tell you from having served on that committee that this whole thing didn't come out as a plot by anybody to circumvent public notice. People came to the Anchorage Advisory Committee saying, here in the mooring field, there's not enough showers, there's not enough laundry facilities, there's problems with management of the mooring field. So it came from public input back then, months ago, to that committee.
I'm not questioning anybody's motives. I just wanted to know if they're going to have a thorough vetting of the alternative proposal from Harbor House. Is that going to be part of the advisory committee's?
I don't know if it's on the agenda.
All right. I would just say too, since Roger's not here, as someone who's watched this as a candidate, I guess, I don't think anybody's motives are be impugned. I do think the virus did kind of things difficult for people on a variety of fronts, but as it relates to this issue, I was watching the council hearings on Channel 98 on Comcast. I do remember the council hearing where it was just going to be a renovation of the park. I remember another council meeting where the building was going to be in the center of the park, and then I realized because of the water coming through, we had to move it to the side. So it's been ever evolving. So it has been difficult for folks to track. I don't remember a particular meeting where folks could have provided input and have had a dialogue. We obviously had some great input this morning, but I don't remember a situation where people could have had an exchange where they could provide input on the newest of the designs. We talked about it at our M&P meeting, but that doesn't really afford public comment very well. So it created I just think it's an awkward dynamic. The more we can maybe slow things down, make sure that the alternatives are fully considered and vetted, I just think that would help our process. I understand frustration. I don't agree with the fact that there's ulterior motives here. I do think the virus really kind of messed up the opportunity for public comment and for good communication. And so I think we should try to be sensitive to that as best we can. And I still have some concerns about the project, and that's I don't know where that opportunity will be to have that final conversation. I mean, it's been ever evolving, and understandably so. I just think it's something we need to be mindful of, I guess.
Just to know, the Crab Committee is going to talk about this on meeting Thursday, I think. Calendar, right? Thursday 3. They called a meeting. This is their intent to talk about. So another chance for dialogue.
All right, thank you. All right, the next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes, and we have 3 items here. The Town Council regular meeting of June 1st, 2020, minutes of the June 4th, 9 a.m. special session, and also the Town Council Management and Planning meeting of June the 4th. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
I have a one-word amendment on page 16 of the June 4th minutes. I would like to change the word, it says emergency plan, it should be emergency ordinance, again on page 16. And I would move to approve that amendment.
Moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? Action? Minutes pass. Next item is the consent agenda. There's one item on there, and that's ratifying the selection of the advisory committee recommendation for RFP 20-11-CD. That's a resolution of 2019 ratifying the recommendation of the selection advisory committee and the town council for RFP 20-11-CD by ratifying action of the town council taken at their special session on June 4th, 2020. A motion to approve the consent agenda, that item.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second? Second. It's been seconded. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, who was the second, please?
Mr. Councilman Veach. Okay, now we move on with the administrative agenda. Next item is a resolution 20-18 amending the Town Council Policies and Procedures Manual. A motion to approve the resolution?
Moved.
Moved. Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Objection?
This is a resolution to allow them to go ahead and suggest modifications to the manual, or there are specific changes that are being?
There were specific changes that I recommended and wrote and sent to Michelle, which were included in what she sent out. Was the addition of information about evaluation of the town manager and the town attorney.
Okay, right. Is at the very end of the?
The amended manual is the attachment to the resolution.
Further discussion? Objection? Motion carries unanimously. Next item is the supplemental task authorization number 6, which is the Bay Oaks 30% design. This is what we were just speaking of. And this is to allocate and appropriate funds from Fund 41, Community Enhancement Projects, in the amount of $47,810 for Bay Oak's 30% design, which includes campus reconstruction plans, hardscape plan, site furnishings plan, planting plan, irrigation plan, etc. And I'll make a motion to approve the task authorization number 6.
Second.
Moved and seconded.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I just want to let you know that the consultant is here. If you'd like to see graphics, and he's here and available, can show you those.
Right.
I would like to see that. I would like to see that, too.
Before we act on the motion, would you like to dispense with the motion first, or do you want to look at this before?
I'd prefer to see it before.
That'd be helpful.
Enough.
We just haven't seen it.
I've seen it, but I think it'd be beneficial for the rest of the council to see it.
I thought we were going to show the revised council plan. Do we not have that? Bay Oaks? And my mistake, it's not. Do we have a hard copy we could pass around?
Do you say at Bayside Park, though?
That's what she had, and this one isn't ready to go up. Janet got a hard copy.
We've already seen.
Modified site.
Modified, okay. That's what it looks like, if anybody wants to zoom in on that. And this will be provided.
I just was curious, is the consultant here, or is there someone from BORCAB here who could just sort of give us the newer members, a thumbnail sketch? I watched the previous council discuss this, but I thought there was a considerable debate about whether there should be a building on Estero Boulevard or not, and I thought they decided against it. I see the building here. I'm just curious as to where we are as opposed to the last time the last council vetted it and how things have changed, and give us just maybe a thumbnail sketch overview.
Dan, do you want to?
I can help out a little bit, and then if Roger could take it from there, because they were discussing it last Tuesday's meeting. And in regards to your building at the Estero, there was a lot of communication back and forth about whether to have an entrance there, whether not to have an entrance there, 2 stories, what exactly was going to be done with that. Everything else, for the most part, if you looked at the existing building in the back where it sits now, that would stay. That would be repurposed for something else. If you look on the far right-hand side, you'll see there's an amphitheater over there.
Can I just take you back? So the existing basketball and weight room and recreational facility would stay at its current location and just be rebuilt?
That was the discussion that BORCAB had, yes.
Okay.
Then you can obviously see the difference in the layout of the baseball fields and soccer fields and the trail that kind of goes back through there. If you notice over on the right-hand side, the top right-hand side, you see what is like a mini amphitheater there. That is for the school purposes. And correct me if I'm wrong, Roger, but that is something that was part of the negotiations as far as use of the land.
That's like an outdoor classroom, basically is the way it's set up. And these were the amenities that we thought the school board would be interested in having. It's been shown to them from that perspective, and their consent will be included in the agreement of the town to use the land. So that's how we'll know that those particular amenities have been accepted to them. In the verbal conversations we've had with them, they seem to like what we've proposed.
As well as the county, correct?
The county's issue is really more of, land. There's, but where you see sort of like the pickleball court, the top center. County owns little pieces of land outside the mangrove line that we've discussed them turning over to the town, and they don't seem to have any objection to that. But clearly the issue with the school board was more pressing of the two.
And then it's important to note too, Jim, that the pool is not going to change from its way it's configured and set up now. That would stay. If you could look real close, you can see kind of in the middle of the page to the left the amount of parking spaces that are potentially going to be added, 200 to 300, if I'm not mistaken. So Board Cab's going to be meeting again this Thursday to discuss this a little bit more. Probably hash out some of the things that weren't hashed out in the 3-hour meeting from last week, to maybe pinpoint and give a little more direction, hopefully.
Forgive me, so is the building, there is a building on Estero, or there's not a building on Estero?
Well, right now it's being proposed that there is. As we sit here today, right now it is. What happened, just to perhaps fill in the history as you've requested, the original project was when the town acquired ownership of the Estero, the lot on Estero. Original discussion, which typically happens in these government things where you start with X and you wind up at Z. Discussion was, what do we do with that lot? And as a result of that discussion, some of the other concerns with the overall property came to light. In particular, that for example, the agreement with the school board was never formalized. Or we're using their land as part of our park. The functionality of the existing building and its limitations came to light. The fact that approximately 2.5 years ago, when the county was asked to consider helping us with Bay Oaks, did an analysis and found a whole bunch of repairs that the building needed. So the evolution of that was through BORCAB, and their strategic plan was, well, let's look at the property in its entirety. It's not just narrowly focused on the lot. So the buildings, there's an entrance building. There's a building to replace the pool building, and then there's a building to the left of that, as well as the existing building that are being discussed.
Building to the left of the pool building is for park facilities, is that?
The answer is that at this point in time, the base in terms of what I call passive recreation, we really don't have that right now. You know, we have the gym and we use it for passive recreation, but we're really very limited in what passive recreation we can offer because we don't have the facilities for that. So this was the concept plan that was shown to the school for purposes of trying to have them work with the town with regard to the property issues. The question of what happens next is really a function of two things. One is finalizing the agreement with the school board. They've assigned staff to specifically work on the agreement. We've had numerous Zoom and phone conferences and some in-person meetings before COVID-19 with regard to it. They're drafting an agreement to accomplish that. I've reached out to the county to start the process to do an agreement with respect to their land. So these are the concepts. So where we go now is from the concept, you agree with the concept, is to move into the design phase. And that's what the task order that's on today's agenda is intended to do, move from concept to design.
Okay, I appreciate that. I hope my questions aren't interpreted as being against the mission of Bay Oaks, because I'm fully supportive of the missions of Bay Oaks, and I think you can do that with still asking some questions, because this seems to be evolving, and I just want to make sure I understand. So the pedestrian entrance building, or the Welcome Center, that's a two-story building, is that my understanding?
Yes.
So I guess what I'm wrestling is the purpose of that, given the fact that we have this beautiful library, it's a separate entity, it's governed separately, but it's a beautiful entity, and it's for a public purpose. And we're always looking for openings on Estero, and just to put a building there just seems odd to me. What is the stated purpose of that building?
It's not next to the library.
Well, it's near the library, and my point is, if we're going to have meetings there, have it for a place to have meetings, we have the library just a stone's throw away.
Oh, okay.
That's what I was thinking.
I see the words vehicular there by the building.
Yeah, that would be an entrance in. In other words, at one point, there was a discussion of pedestrians only, vehicles in and out, and then vehicles in. So the current concept is vehicles in only.
Okay, so it's a blending of what we discussed before.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, because I've always been in favor of an entrance there. You found a way to do both.
The consultants, yes, ma'am.
If you have an exit, it'll become a shortcut during traffic, so that's one way in. But as far as, now getting back to the building, because I remember Jim being involved in some of the conversations, and when they acquire the land, one of the complaints from the supporters of Bay Oaks has been visibility. It's hidden back there, and a lot of people don't know it's back there. And even with a little sign, I mean, it's a tiny little walkway into a vast system. That there's two ways to make that property work for visibility. One is to open it up, so you're looking into, people can see Bay Oaks, but the other is to bring Bay Oaks out to the street. You can see it, so it kind of serves a purpose. The other thing I know is someone who does classes and things at the main building, you know, it's hard to do like a yoga class when kids are dribbling basketballs around, and there's a lot of conflicting use. Some of the potential purposes of that building that would be more in tune with recreation than maybe some of the things that are going on in the library.
I think that's a great point, but I guess, do we have another building for passive recreation? Could that not be for those kind of purposes?
No, like this one, this one, it says number 2, that's a new building, the park facility building.
Yes.
When you use the term passive recreation, is that for like bingo or things like that, activities or social activities?
It's for not basketball, not pickleball, not those type of active things, card games, yoga.
Yoga's going to be there. What's going to be held at the Welcome Center? Is it more of a visual piece?
One of the things we have to recognize, we really have no space for staff. We have no place for welcome activities, places where people can just walk by and stop in and say what's going on, how I'm interested in this, those types of activities. So Atterholt, you made a point about the library, and I think it's a very good point, because all the years that I've been here, there's been discussion, can we use the building, the women, what's it on by Sterling, the big piece of property? Women's Club. No, can we use that? Can we use the library? Can we use this? Can we use that? And the answer is, well, these are spaces that probably could be utilized to some extent. We really can't manage a program spread out that way. We have to have dedicated staff at each facility, and so on and so forth. And I think through the strategic planning process, whatever, the consensus has been that we need to offer those type of indoor space activities here at Bay Oaks, make the site fully functional. Now, you all may disagree with that. You may, for example, say that one building is enough versus 2 or 3. That's part of the process. I think the question is that today might be a little premature for you to make that decision, but you can. I think this is to give the consultant the opportunity, at least to the 30% level, to bring you back some information so you can look at those spaces and say, well, you know what, we do need them, or you know what, we don't need them. But the main thing that really changed on the plan was, from the original concept plan, was the accommodation of a second ball field. Even though there's a small shared outfield there, was to be sure that we were in conformity with the Little League regulations, and we've had the Little League's participation at our last board cap meeting. So we want to make sure they were plugged into the process and they were on board with what we were doing. Their comments and concerns were addressed. So in any event, this is the concept. The concept's not the final plan. Concept. And I think how these indoor spaces will be utilized is something that you and the community will better understand once we have some 30% plans or so.
This is really what we have at this point. We don't have conceptual drawings of the buildings or anything like that at this point.
That's what be next.
That's next step.
So just by way of comparison, those plans you saw from Bayside Park at your last MP meeting, that's the things you would see if this service order, that's would be generated once the service order is put in place.
And listen, I'm not trying to be difficult. I just didn't have the benefit of the 3-hour board cab meeting that Dan had, and I appreciate him doing that. I haven't seen or heard much about this because of the virus and so forth. I remember it a few months back, so that's why I'm asking. I'm just trying to find out where we were and where we're going. So I'm not trying to be difficult. I support the mission. I do have some questions about number of buildings and the purpose of the buildings, particularly given no library is governed completely separately. But golly, that's a beautiful building and it has a lot of space inside, and I just trying to think through that. So that's all. I won't belabor it.
If I can add, so when I was on board cabin, we had a lot of discussions going through with the master concept plan and town hall meetings and things like that. A building based on kind of what you're looking at there was thought of. The seniors are really interested in this project, and one of their concerns was having a place that they could be away from the basketballs and be away from something to have their anything from yoga classes to technology, learning how to use their phone, computers, things like that, have a space like that. So we kind of an idea of what that space could be used for. That's where, in my opinion, that's where a lot of that maybe came from, was input from the seniors from the south end of the island.
I'm talking about the Estero Boulevard building, the Welcome Center building?
Not necessarily that building specifically, but that idea of having a space that could be used for. You know, having an entrance in and out of their vehicle will get worked out, but it's not a very big space to begin with. I think it's only like 75 feet wide. So to utilize the space above it seems to make some sense.
Maybe we could have a joint meeting with the library board in the future and discuss the potential of that building.
The problem I see with using the library, though, is they have to charge. If we want to use their space, we would be continually paying them for using their space. We're a separate taxing entity, so they feel a duty that they have to charge for that space.
I appreciate that, but it seems like, I just hope we're talking to each other, because I hate to see duplication when the proximity is so close. I don't know that indeed is the case.
And I can tell you, having worked there during season, their space is booked solid during season with guest lecturers. It's full.
Okay.
Daily.
Just to let you know that one of the concerns of the school board is that right now they feel that they can utilize the park and they can't utilize the park because we have other programs and things that conflict with their use of the park. So we have the overlap, like the vice mayor is saying. And yeah, there are times when everything's vacant. There are times where everything would be full. And with the concept plan, and you may say, for example, at the end of the day, let's build building 1 and 2, but not building 3 yet, and just wait and build building 3 years from now. To get it on the concept plan and know where it's going to be and know what the future use is, those are all the things we'll be discussing prospectively. I'll tell you that these concepts of trying to share space, it's very difficult. It seems like it should be easy, but unfortunately it does get difficult and complicated.
All right.
I just, because in some ways, the one thing we do have is we have Newton House. And that's kind of a satellite. So it means that staffing and stuff gets difficult because it's away from the main campus. You talked about trying to, the Welcome Center, have that a place where people come in, they find out what's going on. Then you have an additional place to staff, include, in addition to the main building, and in addition to this other building, spreading staff out if you make that into something that's going to be staffed.
Understood.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to appropriate the amount of $47,810 for the Bay Oaks 30% design, which includes campus reconstruction plans, hardscape plan, furnishings plan, planting plan, irrigation plan, etc. Discussed. Is there any further discussion? Any objection? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, the next item is a fleet purchase, which is a replacement of the 15-passenger van the town owns. Approve the purchase of the replacement vehicle from Sam Galloway Ford in the amount of $39,525.35 as budgeted in fiscal year 2020 budget, piggybacking Lee County contract ITB 160545 and authorizing auction of the old van. Is there a motion to approve this expenditure?
I'll move.
Moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
And moved and seconded. Discussion?
Just, if I may, what do we use the van for?
The van is used for part of the children's program when they do things off-site, and for the seniors when they're off-site.
Further discussion? Any objection? Motion carries unanimously. The next item is the fiscal year 2020 water and stormwater rate study review. This is to direct staff to proceed with the implementation of the proposed fiscal year 2020 water and stormwater rate study review rate adjustment. Is there a motion to direct staff in that direction?
Moved.
Moved. I'll second that. Discussion.
Just wanted to note for the record that I noticed that there were changes studied that seemed to be based on our prior discussions.
Yes, and we can show you that if you'd like to see that and have Brian walk you through that, Madam Vice Mayor. The changes accomplished two things. One is it addressed the point that you made, which was that the percent increase did not necessarily follow the increase in consumption. We had some cases where it went up, then went down, then went up again, and I believe the consultant was able to smooth that. And the second thing was that, as you recall, Mr. Lang indicated a desire to have cash up front to help them meet the cash flow needs of the multiple projects going on at the same time. And the consultant was able to address that, but I would like you to take a moment and see that.
The changes that I noticed were on it looks a lot the same, and I know I spoke to someone else who thought it was the same, and I just wanted to make it clear that there were changes. Trying to find the other page. There's changes, I think, on page 76. There may be more that I didn't catch right there. But they all looked like they followed along with our prior discussion. I was pleased to see them.
I ask a quick question based upon what the Vice Mayor said. Now, Roger, if you just talk, are you going to go through this, or is that just for our reference?
The consultant is available. I think they're just trying to technologically work it out, so he can walk you through that real quick.
I just had a question on the water rate increase for next year. Was the original, was the cost of service study, wasn't that around 4.5%? Are we now asking for 7%? Is that
right? What the consultant did is took the aggregate percentages, the total of all those 4.5% increases, and readjust them to start at 7 and then go down to 3.5.
Why would we do that? Why would we have a 7%?
Well, I'll let, well, A, it helps with the cash flow situation, but B, I'll let him express how that helps address the issue that the vice mayor made up as well, was concerned about as well.
All right, Brian?
Hang on.
There.
Brian?
Hello.
Okay. Can you hear him? We just hear him? Brian, can you say something?
Yes, hello.
Brian, did you hear the question?
No, could you please repeat it?
With that.
Just walk through the water, Brian, and changes.
The water increases. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Just what changed? Is that the we talked a little bit. We subsequent to our future to our last workshop, we talked about going back to to make sure everyone was comfortable with the rate adjustments, and with the state revolving fund program, there's a little bit of timing difference between when the cash flow has to be provided for the capital program to reimburse the vendors, and then when it's reimbursed to the SRF loan program. And so in working with staff, especially the finance department, can everyone still hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So in working with staff, basically the endpoint is still the same as far as the revenues that we're gradually building up to over time, but because of the timing and the cash flow, it's recommended that we have a little bit more upfront rate adjustments. However, as I mentioned, if you were to look at the overall increases over time, they're exactly the same, just have a little bit more upfront. And then based on the council direction, we basically adjusted the rate structure for the first year so that there are no increases in the base charges, and all the increases are recovered through the volumetric charges, and that provides a kind of an increase distribution that's consistent with what the council was wanting to see based on your direction. And so, like I said, this is a 1 year consistent with the rate restructuring. This is a 1 year break from having base charge increases, and that certainly helps smaller users, and it pushes more cost recovery to users with more discretionary and excessive usage. And as far as the change to, we talked about how the average user uses about 4,000 gallons per month. The revised structure doesn't really, when we compare how the town's rates compare with those of other utilities, you're still on the same relative position on the graph. So I feel like it's a pretty good plan.
Questions?
Just for the layperson who might be watching, the average ratepayer then on the water side would see a 7% increase next year, and then the following year, what would that percentage be?
Actually, the 4,000, we're increasing for the average user of 4,000 gallons. And this is on, if anyone has the present, is it okay if I share the screen here?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So this is kind of what you're seeing is if you see at a usage of 4,000 gallons, actually the increase, the 7% revenue adjustment is recovered through the higher usage customers. And here you can see we were taking a break from the which is about 2.7%. And when we look at how this compares with respect to how the town compares with others, you can see there's really not much change in your relative position compared to what was communicated previously. And we're just putting more of the cost burden to users with more discretionary and excessive usage, and we're providing a break to the smaller users.
The 7% number is the average enhanced revenue for the town or for the utility. The average user would see just a 2.7% increase. Is that a fair generalization?
That is correct. We're going to have 7% more revenues under the plan, but how we're going to recover it through customers with more usage.
And then on that 7% number in year 2, what does that number look like?
In year 2, the rate adjustments are across the board, but here you can see the former plan versus the new plan. So you can see that we're higher in, by a few cents in the first year, but actually under this revised plan, because we're shifting more cost burden to larger users, we're actually at a lower point for the average user compared to what was presented before.
A separate question for Roger.
So just to help you understand, it's 7, 6, 3, 5, 3, versus 4.5, 4.5, 4.5, and 4.5.
And that's pretty far out to go for a cost of service study. Will that revenue projection be reviewed each year then in terms of the need? And who does that review?
We do not typically review it every year. Well, we can, but we typically do not. We typically will do it like every third year. If we have a question in between, we'll ask for not an in-depth study like you have here, but just a rate sufficiency letter if we feel we are becoming concerned.
Or if we have surplus too, right?
Yeah, I'm not really anticipating surplus, but should we find ourselves in that situation? Sure.
Yeah, the accounting principles that at the M&T meeting, we made it very clear, I think it was unanimous from the council, that the town council no longer wishes general fund dollars or gas tax dollars to be utilized to subsidize either the stormwater utility enterprise or the water utility enterprise. It's currently not doing the water utility enterprise. Has that principle been codified in the accounting procedures of the town? In other words, will that now be very evident when we do our accounting for the,
I believe the accounting part of it is already been clarified based on the action the council took back in September. In regard to the, what I'm going to call the interim fix that the council did in September, by approving this rate structure and potentially the budget later today and again in September, then you will have codified that in its entirety.
the principle of no longer subsidizing with general fund dollars or gas tax dollars, either utility enterprise, will that somehow be formally forth in any manner that'll be on paper, so the accounting entities and the audit committee, everyone can see that this is now going forward, that the process for the town?
Yes, because the budgets will be sufficient for those. Right now, the budget, the situation with the stormwater utility was the stormwater utility revenue stream was insufficient to accommodate the policy change of putting the maintenance in the stormwater utility. Proposed budget for this year addresses that situation and resolves it.
It'll be clear to any outsider looking at the budget that we're no longer utilizing gas tax funds or general funds to subsidize the stormwater utility enterprise. Is that fair?
Anybody with some accounting knowledge, yes.
So, have your direction.
Yes, so if the council accepts this revision to the water rates and the stormwater rates have not changed from our last discussion, staff will proceed to do the proper notifications with regard to the ratepayers, to advise them of these potential increases, and set up a public hearing whereby the council will formalize these increases after having public input. And at that point, you would vote to either proceed with them or not to proceed with them or modify them to something.
Quick question, if I may. Who I expect you to know this, Roger, but off the top of your head, do you know who the 3 largest users are in the town of Fort Myers Beach?
Christy probably knows.
Christy Corey, for the record. Diamond Head, Bonnie Kai, and generally Estero Beach and Tennis Club.
Just curious.
I had a question for Mr. Aaron. Still with us? We also, in discussing this, ask you to prepare an ordinance for us that the pass-through would be automatic and not have to continually be voted on. Are you making progress on that, and do you have an expected date that will be on our agenda?
It will be on the next agenda. I'm saying pass-through. I'm sorry,
The automatic adjustment in costs from Lee County, it was recommended in the water rate study that we not have to vote on that each time that it comes through, but that we have an ordinance that it is automatic, that whatever increase they increase their cost for the charge of the water itself, be an automatic. So you will have that in ordinance for us at the first meeting in August.
yes, unless you want on the MNP first.
Doesn't sound complicated enough that we would need to MMP it to me, but that's just my opinion.
I agree with that, and just for anybody who might be watching, 60% of the water utilities cost is just purchasing the bulk water from Lee County, just in case anybody's watching. Yep, but your point is well taken.
Okay. All right. Okay, the next item is Resolution 20-20, adopting the tentative millage 2021. I'll read the resolution. I don't think it required a vote. There was a motion. No, there wasn't. There wasn't. On that last item, there was not.
I believe I moved it and you seconded
Moved
it.
approval? Oh, I'm sorry, I stand corrected, I'm sorry. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Any objection? Motion carries unanimously. Next item is the Resolution 2020, adopting the tentative millage rate for 2021. Read that, Resolution number 20-20, a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, adopting the tentative operating ad valorem millage rate of .8700 mils for fiscal year 2020-2021 of the Town of Fort Myers Beach, Lee County, Florida, establishing the date, time, and place for hearings to adopt the final operating ad valorem millage rate and the budget for the fiscal year 2020-2021, and providing an effective date. Whereas Florida statutes provide that municipalities shall have governmental, corporate, and proprietary powers to enable them to conduct municipal government, perform municipal functions, and render municipal services, and exercise any power for municipal purposes, except when expressly prohibited by law. And whereas Article 10 of the Town Charter of the Town of Fort Myers Beach empowers the town to adopt, amend, or repeal such ordinances and resolutions as may be required for the proper governing of the town. And whereas Section 200-.065 Florida statutes establishes the method for determining and levying an ad valorem millage rate and adopting a budget for all taxing authorities in the state of Florida. And whereas the Town of Fort Myers Beach, Lee County, Florida, by and through its town council, hereby determines it is in the best interest of the town and orderly governmental process to hold public hearings as required by Section 200-.065 Florida statutes. And whereas it is in the best interest of the health, safety, and welfare of the residents and visitors of Fort Myers Beach that the town council set the tentative operating millage rate as set forth herein and take the other actions set forth herein. And whereas the gross taxable value for operating purposes not exempt from taxation within the Town of Fort Myers Beach, Lee County, Florida, has been preliminary certified by Lee County Appraiser for the Town of Fort Myers Beach as to be determined. Now, therefore, it is hereby resolved by the Town Council of the Town of Fort Myers Beach as follows. Section 1, the above recitals are true and correct and hereby incorporated by reference as set forth herein. Section 2, the tentative ad valorem operating millage rate is hereby adopted at
To be determined mills, we're going to have that
be
conversation.
determined mills. Section 3, public hearings and public meetings and hearings will be held in compliance with Florida property tax truth and millage trim process at Town Hall, 2525 Estero Boulevard, Fort Myers Beach, Florida. To consider and adopt the final millage rate and to consider and adopt the town budget for fiscal year 2020-2021 as set forth in Section 200.0654 Florida statutes. Section 4, this resolution shall take effect immediately upon its adoption by the Town Council of the Town of Fort Myers Beach. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
I believe there's a typo
What was that?
in the title. Throughout the body, it keeps saying to be determined, but in the title, it says .87. I think it is intended to be .95. The third line.
I see it. Is that correct, Town Manager?
The blue sheet says at .95.
And at this point, we can't go up, we can only go down, so I would rather go with .95 at this point in time. We could decide to lower it later.
It was to be .95.
So I would move the adoption of resolution number 2020 with the amendment to the third line be .95.
Second.
I'll second. What about the to be determined? What's the difference between the,
Same one has been filled in.
will be .95 as well?
If I may, Mayor and members of the council, we'll make that change on the last whereas clause. The number that is to be inserted there is the number that has been provided to the town by the county property appraiser at the time of the drafting of this. I don't believe that number was provided, but taxable of the town. I don't know. Available,
Said it was to the beach.
We have the preliminary number. We don't have the final number yet. We will get that before July 1st.
and we obviously, section 2 of the resolution will bring in the village number you just stated, Vice Mayor. And last but not least, to the extent that there are questions today and dates available, in section 3 of the resolution, ultimately we'll have to identify the hearing dates that are being proposed. Those can be placed in the trim notice.
Very good.
And those, of course, have to be coordinated with the other taxing jurisdictions so we don't overlap.
Okay, so the corrected resolution has been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
If I may, Mr. Mayor, just a couple questions for Roger, just for the layperson who might be watching this. The proposed cap mill rate that we're agreeing to today is the same as last year. Is that correct? It is not increased? So if we wanted to be really particular, if the assessed value goes up to some extent, the town will be receiving additional revenue, correct?
Correct.
What is that number?
Approximately $40,000.
Okay. Obviously, you've got inflation, you've got cost of living challenges, or that some of that gets absorbed. But the point is that we're keeping the mill rate the same as last year. Is that fair? Aside from this $40,000 infusion.
Yes, that's a correct statement. And there's a list of things that we will be doing, not only with that $40,000, but with other carryover and money generated out of efficiencies that are listed for the council in the book that you received. Some of them you talked about, UMP, for example, funding half of the Hercules, Coconut and Delmar observation deck replacements, and others that are recommended by staff. So we can take a look at those if you wish. They're on that list that we provided to you.
Those will be vetted throughout the budget process as well, correct?
Those can be, again, because this is setting the ceiling and not the floor, those could be changed or modified downward at your 2 public hearings or as a result of workshops we have between now and then.
Further discussion?
Just note for our newer members that I think part of the budget hearings have to be held after 5 o'clock. So we're kind of in this routine at 9 a.m. Be careful that you look at your notices for those meetings that we have then, because they're not at the same time as we often have them, but that state requires it.
The 2 council meetings in September will be at 5 p.m.
Any objection to the motion? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, the next item is final public comment. Anybody wish to speak?
I have no requests.
Anybody? Yes, you do. Certainly do.
Todd Richardson again, owner at Harbor House. Thanks for the added time. I didn't quite get through all my notes, but I'll try to make it as brief as I can. Going back to how this started through the mooring committee and pushing the building towards a different location. Went back to what I believe was a February 26th meeting. It was more like a roundtable discussion for the mooring or the AAC committee. And the person running that meeting kept telling the people there, we just need to dream. Give us an idea, give us your ideas, but just dream. What do you want this to be? Because I think they want to be a premier mooring destination. But also within that comments of just dream, there were also comments made that it's not up to us to find the space, and we don't dwell on the details. I find those things a little disturbing, because if that is your job, I think some of the details and maybe looking for additional space outside of the easy fix would be the thing to do. Additionally, there was a narrative at the last planning meeting, I believe, that the upper deck created, or the second and third upper deck of the building created a great deal more space for the park. If you remove the thought of the second level because it's just bathrooms, laundries, showers, that's not usable space for park people, that's just a service provided. You add in the upper deck, the space on the upper deck that's provided in front of the forward closet, you would say, so you have an elevator shaft and a forward closet, so you've got this little banquet table, and it would be, I think, the northern part of the upper deck. You then remove the space taken away on the lower level, gain about 141 square foot of park space, a little over 2%. Quite the 50% that I think was presented before, used as park space. I just wanted to share those notes, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else care to speak? Okay, hearing none, we'll close the public comment. Town manager items?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, I received an email from Pat McGowan, who is writing a book about the Mound House. And he's doing it on a pro bono basis, and he's all the procedures of the book are going to go to the Friends of the Mound House and to that asset of the town. Part of his book, he would like to use the original town council inauguration photograph of the 5 councils who were inaugurated as the first members of council. Since that's, in essence, your photograph, I didn't want to say it was just okay with me. It sounds like a great idea, but I wanted to raise it to you all and see if you had any concerns of objection before I gave to go ahead to utilize the photograph. The photograph was already in his hand, provided by the former mayor, Anita Saraceno. He's just looking for formal consent.
The author?
Pat McGowan.
Doing it for the benefit of us. I have no problem with granting permission to use the photograph for the book. The proceeds are for the Mound House.
Customary fee to the for the likenesses.
A picture is one of the pictures, Mr. Mayor.
I understand that. I have no objection to that.
Okay, I will share the good news with him.
You want to take a recess until Bill?
Is. Else, Mr. Manager?
Now, the next thing I wanted to just mention is that, and I'm sure you're all aware of this, but I just want to be sure it's on the record, that heard some concerns about one of the projects we're working on, and sort of being given instruction to the contrary, work of the consultant is proceeding. At some point, we will have a product and be available for further comment by the community. But I wanted you to be aware that that work is continuing until such time as the council directs us to do otherwise. So I just want to be part of the record and be respectful of some of the comments we received.
Along those lines, Roger, possible, have you sat down and met with the folks that are offering this alternative proposal? And or my guess is this project won't be ready exactly by the time contract expires with the current vendor. You'll need an extension. You're going to have those conversations anyways. Sounds like the Anchorage Advisory Committee, and it sounds like CRAB, Advisory Committee maybe, CRAB certainly sounds like this week's going to review that proposal. Seems like that ought to be properly vetted given the conversations that we've had this morning, and I assume you'll be talking to the vendor anyways because you'll probably need to extend that contract for a few months. If nothing, if we decide to go with the building as the option, it seems like we ought to be talking to each other, I guess is all I'm suggesting.
Well, I think there's a couple of things. One is, well, let's remember, not to rehash all this, but let's remember we started with, well, let's put the facility there, then let's not put the facility there, then let's put the facility there. So right now it's there. It's in the planning, for planning purposes. So the building, the park can have building or no building, building with upland facilities or without. Park could be renovated or not renovated. So there's a multitude of choices that exist. So right now, we're working under the assumption that paying the consultant to do these plans, that the upland facilities will be in that building. You want us to explore other alternatives, be happy to do that.
One comment I'd like to throw in is everybody keeps talking about the alternative that's been proposed for the laundry facilities. The same people are saying they don't want to see people bringing laundry through the park. The proposed location is actually further away. People will be walking laundry further down the street. And the two arguments seem inconsistent to me. So I just wanted to point that out. The same people who are saying,
Isn't there a dinghy dock under the bridge? If I'm mistaken?
so they're going to be bringing it a further distance from a different location then. It's still further than what we're talking about. And I'm not trying to take sides here, I'm just trying to point out an inconsistency. They're still going to be carrying their laundry down the street.
It just seems like it ought to be vetted, and these folks ought to at least be heard in it. We need to figure out the economics of it, the practicality. I mean, you raised a good point, but Mike, that seems like that conversation needs to be had. And maybe it has. It doesn't sound like it has been had yet. And it just seems like, as good stewards, it seems like the logical thing to do would be to hear these folks out. The Anchorage Advisory Committee and CRAB and others vet it, get a better sense of it. I mean, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But my sense is, and we heard it this morning, these folks don't feel as if it's been vetted. And having watched
And I'm
this,
not arguing against
no,
that.
I know you're not. I know you're not. I'm just saying that I think it could be helpful to hear all that out, and then we can see if it works or not. I mean,
One other thing I'd like to point out to add to this, people are talking about they didn't receive an actual mail notice. And when we say notice has been given of the public forum that we held in our meetings. You don't get a notice about a variance until an actual process has started to do permits, et cetera. So a mail notice would not have been sent yet. We're not that far in the process.
and I appreciate that. And
So I'm just trying to say this for the people to understand that I keep getting emails accusing us of being nefarious, and that's not what's going on.
Well, I mentioned this earlier, but I'll say it again, is that I don't believe there's anything nefarious going on. I think the COVID-19 issue created real problems in the communication. And when we went into the COVID, it was just going to be a park, a renovated park, which I don't think anybody, including the folks here this morning, argue with. And then it went to the building at the end of the park, and then it's on the side of the park, and that was all through the COVID stuff. And it was just hard to follow that, particularly when your businesses are shut down and life's somewhat in chaos. I just think it's been nobody's fault. It's just been awkward. As a result of that awkwardness, because of the COVID challenge, we have a duty and a responsibility to make sure that this is fully vetted in a way where people have some input and feel heard. So that's all I'm saying. I don't think anybody was doing anything conspiratorial. I just think that was just a result of the unfortunate circumstances that we've all been going through.
I guess the real question, though, Jim, is Roger keeps saying to us, this process is going forward. Are you saying you want to halt the process until we have a public forum?
Let me just say, I've had some serious concerns about having this facility right next to a park. I've tried to pull back, because I want to see the drawings, let things be heard. I'm just speaking as one counselor. I've got serious concerns about this being right next to a public park with all these services. And it seems like the park is for the residents of our island. It seems like we're subverting the purpose of the park for 70 folks who are currently being serviced, maybe not the way we want them to be serviced, but it just seems like additional thinking on this would be, I'm trying to keep an open mind, but I'm leaning on exactly as you're talking about. I've got concerns about it. So, that's why I'm so curious if this alternative has any merit, and if it does, I would be intrigued by it. I've not vetted it myself, so.
Well, just a little history. Publicly, the chair of the Anchorage Advisory Committee came to the town council and in public asked that a consideration be given to putting facilities in this location. And the town council agreed to look at that. So that was all done as part of a public meeting broadcast. Everyone. It didn't happen behind the scenes.
No, I'm not saying that
Again,
anybody's done
I'm
anything.
not saying
Yeah.
this so much to respond to you, but to educate people that may be watching this, that this,
That's fair.
Let me interject too, because, I understand the perception that people have, because, I've been involved with this for over a year. And it wasn't until we had a joint meeting with the Anchorage Committee and CRAB and Town Council that the proposal came up to put the facility there. My first blush was, it sounds like a pretty poor use of pretty premium space. But honestly, the designs they came up with, to me, really showed a vision that I didn't have, what way they could do it without being necessarily overt. But that said, we were working on this for a long time without making a whole lot of progress. It was all just some concepts of how to renovate the park. It wasn't until the building came in with it, and then pretty much almost every meeting it seems that it was had, at least for our council, things have changed significantly. So these changes came on fairly rapidly. And so the actual building that we're talking about now, I think, is pretty new. I do agree, though, that, if there is another option on the table, that we should develop that option and just put it on the, be able to hear before we go too much further, just to see if it really makes a lot of sense. And I understand there's pluses and minuses in both of them, but until we really look at the numbers and we look at the facility and we know what this other option is completely, I think it wouldn't be prudent to rush ahead with more of the building until we can see what the other option is. And I don't think it would take a great deal of time and effort to examine what they're offering, look at the numbers, see what it would cost to build it out and what it would cost to rent or buy it, and see how that plays in with compared to the new building.
As I tried to bring it out in the M&P meeting, I obviously not in favor of laundry facilities at this park location either. And based on all the things that you've said so far, Jim, and everybody else has said, I think it's in our best interest to take another look at it, just because of the things that you brought up, COVID-19, the drastic change of the way the building was going to be laid out versus the way it is now. I think that is the biggest concern that I've heard from people, is that there was discussion from previous council as to having facilities there, and maybe not to this extent, but that there was going to be a building that was going to be parallel with the back bay, and now it is running perpendicular because of a water line that runs underneath it. We can discuss why they didn't know that ahead of time until our faces turned purple, but we found out at a time after they started the design as to it had to be turned. And now what people are seeing is not necessarily what was discussed in the previous councils, from my eyes. And I think it would be best served to go back and reevaluate, slow this down a little bit, get the other option like you mentioned, Bill, and then give people some input. Let them give some input on what has to happen now because of the water line that's running through there. I think that would be our best course of action.
Well, there are other options available. There's no doubt about it. And I guess after hearing this discussion today, I guess the question is whether we want to continue to go ahead with this option if spend more money pursuing these drawings and plans and so forth, if there's really not the will of the council to pursue. So I'm hearing doubts from various quarters here, and well, I guess my question to the council would be: do we move forward with this, or do we put a hold on it for a while and see, or do we just flat out kill it?
I'm in support, Mr. Chair, of doing something with the space as long as it doesn't involve the upland facilities.
That would mean that would infer that I want that structure there, that building.
Not necessarily that one,
no?
but I like speaking with previous counselors. They had some very good vision as far as a smaller scale building there, and a lot of educational things being put in there. The memorial for the veterans being put in there, things of that. Keeping a big green space, keeping the stage, things like that. Just not necessarily the need to have a building that big.
Well, what I heard earlier in this discussion was that the genesis of that building was for the upland facilities for the mooring field people. So if there's no desire to have that type of facility there, Why have a building?
I keep advocating that we need more public restrooms on this island. And less than 50% of this building is supposed to be for the mooring field. I'd still like to see restrooms there.
I agree with that.
So I think if there are three of you who want to slow this down, Roger is telling you that we've already moved this forward. You're going to have to tell him to stop by a vote or a motion or something, because his current marching orders now are to move forward, to continue to spend money toward the 60-90% plans. Am I correct, Roger?
I would say they're working now if they weren't physically here, but they would be, I would say they were working on it right now as we speak, so.
Us just
exactly
sitting
what I-
here talking about this way
Well,
isn't
that's
going to-
exactly, Vice Mayor, what I just proposed. That's what I'm putting forward here right now, is whether there is the will of the council to keep moving on this. That's what I am proposing.
And, you know, I would just like to, air this out, air other proposals out. I'm not necessarily against this building. I do think that, in practice, that this second floor with the laundry facilities would be not as visible to people as they may think, because the general public is going to get in an elevator and ride up to the roof. They're not going to stop at the second floor. They'll go and get the view. The other thing is the designers, I think they did a really good job of minimizing the visual impact of this from like Nervous Nellies, lining up the support posts with their current posts, and kind of keeping the viewpoint open. Plus, I think there's a lot of concern about the detrimental parts of this building, and they're sidestepping a lot of the potential benefit, and that is it's a premium space. There's a venue up there now that the businesses in the area could potentially could use, and both as a money earner for the town, and as when there's special events and they need more space, or when they someone wants to have a private event that's isolated from the rest of their business, they would have a way to do that. So there's a lot of benefits too, but I just like to see what this other option is and compare the two, so we can sit at a table and say, here's A and B, really compare them hard.
So under that scenario, you would have the town manager continue with the designers right now on this plan, and then get to a point where you can compare A and B?
Well, if we, with the designer, if we've already committed to this next phase of them, is that going on regardless?
Well, I think there's a potential solution here. So the council authorized work to begin on Bay Oaks today. We can direct the consultant to divert their energy to that while we look at this other alternative to see if it's viable, and
Same group. It's the same group of people.
we could look at
Designers.
it's the same design group,
Same
yes.
group.
So we
Okay,
could
well, that
divert
makes
their
sense.
energy to the other projects, because there are two other projects that they're also under contract to work on. Just given the go-ahead for one of them this morning. And we can then look at some of the issues that you've raised this morning, if you wish us to.
Sounds reasonable to me. Everybody's in agreement with that?
I mean, my biggest concern was when I was reading about the 30% to it's going to be ready for bids at the end of July, where we were going to see the changes that we discussed in the M&P meeting, when were we going to get a chance to see that, or was it just going to come in with the here's what's ready for bid?
Well, I think one of the things was that, we had the consultant here on the Bay Oaks issue, but it's the same consultant. And, obviously, if you had questions about some of the things that were raised in M&P, I'm sure they would try to answer that for you, if you wish. I think we all know that the last thing we want to do is have a set of plans that we're not going to, develop a full set of plans and not go forward. That's be desirable, I think, in anyone's mind. So it's a matter of getting more information to better understand the alternatives. That's fine. If it's I'm against this no matter what, then it's not really relevant. If it's before I can jump on board, I want to make sure all the other alternatives have been exhausted, do that.
Sounds good to me.
Plus, the crowd will meet, and Anchorage will meet, and other people will meet, and there's probably an update to the plans from a week ago. They've worked on it for a week, so there's more information, I'm sure, available for CRAB and for the Anchorage Committee next time they meet.
Roger, do you need a motion, or is consensus enough for you to?
Oh, just if consensus is enough that it's part of a recorded meeting, that's what you would like me and the staff to do, and we'd be happy to do that.
Good. Hey, Roger, any other items, Town Manager?
No, sir.
Town Attorney, do you have anything to add?
Yes, very quickly. Thank you, Mayor. Number one, you all probably already know at this point in time that last Tuesday we had oral argument via Zoom with the Second District Court bill with regard to the TPI development application challenged by Mr. Patton. I think for those who watched or those who maybe more importantly didn't watch, I'm cautiously optimistic and hope that we will have a decision that is favorable to the town in short order. One never knows, but I was pleased with the outcome. Again, hopefully we'll have a ruling from the court before the end of the summer. If and when that happens, I obviously will let each and every one of you know, and we will go from there. The other second item that I would like to raise with the council is that staff has advised me that we have a third vessel in our mooring field that is delinquent in or on its monthly mooring field or buoy payment, and have asked me to seek and obtain authorization from the town council to begin the court proceedings to remove that vessel from the mooring field so we can free it up for someone who will in fact pay for that mooring buoy. It is, the motor vehicle name is Black Prince, and the owner of the vessel is a gentleman by the name of David Reynolds. And I would ask for authorization to initiate the appropriate actions to have the motor vessel Black Prince removed from the mooring field.
Move to authorize the town attorney to take such action.
Moved and seconded. Question? John, that's basically an eviction? Is that what you're saying? Oh, okay.
Mr. Chair.
And that's it, unless you all have any questions of me.
Councilman Allers has a question.
John, can you, for the record, go through what the process is to get someone out of the mooring field?
As the mayor indicated, it's really no different than our standard landlord-tenant eviction process. We file proceedings in generally county court because the amount of money that's in controversy is less than $15,000. We provide notice to the vessel owner as best we can by directly if we can, if not by posting the vessel and also publishing notice in the local newspaper, and ultimately either get their attention. They either become current on their monthly rent or remove the vessel voluntarily. Failing that, we then seek a court order to remove the vessel from the mooring field and engage the services of companies such as U.S. Towing or other similar entity to have the vessel towed away from the mooring field.
Thank you, John.
Is this vessel occupied?
No, and in fact, that's part of the problem with all three of the vessels, including this one, that essentially have been abandoned.
Okay. All right, anything else, Attorney? That's it? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Council members' items. Councilman Veach.
I think the one thing I was going to talk about, we talked under town manager items, so I'm okay.
Councilman Atterholt.
I don't know that I need to say this, but I'll say it anyways. When I was praising the sandpaper, I was praising them for keeping their news pages separate from their editorial pages. I didn't mean to cast any aspersions on the Observer who also does a wonderful job for Island. I was talking more about national newspapers. And so I again praise the sandpaper for all their good work, and I'm thankful we still have the Observer and the rest of the national newspapers to work. They've set a high bar for you.
Thank you. Yes, Mayor?
I guess my only comment would be that we heard from someone today who said there's no other place in town to take kids except Bay Oaks. The Mound House is also a park with activities, as well as Newton Park, owned by the town, and of course the county parks. So just reminding folks that the Mound House is there and is a good place to take kids.
Just a question for Roger. I don't remember her name, I apologize, from the lighting study we listened to a while back. Where do we stand on that? Are we going to hear from her again, or?
So right now, what we're trying to do is develop sort of a design-build concept project to go out and for her and people like her can partner with people who actually install lighting systems and put together a package for the council's consideration.
That's all I had. Thank
you. Okay, I don't have anything. Our next meeting won't be until Monday, August 3rd at 9 a.m. Also a management and planning meeting afterwards on Thursday, August the 6th.
Oh, Mayor, I know that someone suggested a while ago that we meet through July. No, I know that usually we don't, but I don't know if anybody has plans to go somewhere this year, the situation. If we have going on with the projects, I wonder if there's any interest in council meeting in July.
I really don't have any interest in that, to be honest with you. I can't speak for everybody else. Traditionally, this has been a time for staff catch up with everything that's been going on, and also it's a busy time for them with the budget process going on. So that's kind of the reason why these breaks have taken place historically. Not to say that we're getting overworked ourselves, but the staff is. That's the way I feel about it. Anybody else?
I believe I may have been one of the people who mentioned it, but it was when COVID was causing us to take more frequent actions. At this point, I feel comfortable that if something happens with the pandemic, that call an emergency meeting. Right now, I feel comfortable that on a scheduled July meeting.
I agree.
Okay. That being said, is there anything else for the good of the order here today? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Second. Any discussion, any objection? We're adjourned at 12:13. Thank you, John.